you're joining me, your host, Max Pears. So I just want to thank everyone who is joining. Absolute pleasure to have you all here. It's brilliant. This is the first ever webinar of the Level Design Lobby. So thank you again for being part of this. So those who are wondering, okay, what is the Level Design Lobby? Some of you might not know. Level Design Lobby is a podcast that I host where I talk about level design and game design, breaking this down. I am Max Pears. I'm a professional level designer. I've been making games for about five years, something like that. And I'm just going to be talking about a few things to help those who want to break into the industry and that sort of thing, help them out there. So let's just give it a couple minutes here because I want all the people to join because there's it's still just warming up, so I want to give a bit of a chance before I answer the questions. For those who were wondering how to already ask me questions, there will be the chat on the side. So we'll have one of our moderators, Firestrider, the associate producer, Alex Partridge. He'll be going through things, dropping me a message during it in case I miss any. But also, for those who are a member of my Patreon, you will get the priority question, should I say, that we've already got on the Discord server and on the Patreon as well. So thank you all very much who've participated in that. Okay, just going to give it a couple more minutes. Hey everyone, nice to see you all there. It's good to have you here as well, because now I don't feel so alone, Yeah, just going to give it a couple more minutes. I hope you like the little graphics that we've got going on. You all voted on seeing my pretty face, so I hope that God damn it, my pretty face has distracted me. No, it's cool to see that. So we've tried to give a bit more of a nicer presence on it. Okay, let's just gonna wait one more minute before we kick off some answers. If you are in the chat and you do have questions as well, please just write to them. I will get to them. Okay. Just wait one more minute. We'll go from that there. By the way, me and Alex had the pleasure of trying to set this all up because the charm that I like to say is me. Was like, yeah, I'll stream it on Twitch, not a problem. Didn't realize there was more to it when it comes to streaming on Twitch than I thought. So now I'm like, oh, okay. So it was a bit of a mad rush for us to get it all streamed, but we're here and we're here now. Okay, well, it's a few minutes in, so let's just get on to some of the questions already then, guys and girls. Okay, we're going to go. So these ones are going to be from the Discord channel for us here. So let's get a looking at this one. Right. Okay. So this one is from Watermelon. He is one of our members on the Discord. And he says, and he asked the question of, similar to what I asked about art versus level design, what state of a level now I'm stumbling on my words. What is the state of a level for you to be able to put on on your portfolio? Okay, so to answer this one, it's cool to just have one that's at a block out stage. We're generally, when your stuff's getting reviewed, you're generally just getting the, hey OL Chicken Nugget, nice to have you join here. Generally we're looking at actually the flow of the environment. If there is art in there, that's cool, that's nice, but don't be afraid to just show off your actual block out, because that's what we want to see. If we can, we'd love to see something that is from your paper design to your block out, then to the final one as well. So something like that. Generally, it should just just put on your block outs, just those pure white box, grey blocks, block mesh, whatever you like to call it. Put that on there because that there is fine because we just want to see that. So that answers the first part. He then asks, one other thing I'm curious about is whether linear design, e.g. a campaign that goes from point A to B, how do you avoid making it feel like a corridor? That is a very good question, and it's still one that we're all trying to, I guess, figure out. Well, I think people figure it out. So, a few things. One is the illusion of space. And what do I mean by the illusion of space? So the illusion of space is what I'm referring to as something like you are inside a building and then you have a window, and then out that window you can see things like other buildings, maybe a park in the distance. That sort of thing gives the illusion of space, making the player feel that they're in a much bigger world than they're actually in. The next is having multiple paths that lead off to the... Sorry, fingers are out shut. Let's try... wrong way. Okay. So another thing is the illusion of choice. So BioShock is really good at this as well, because what they tried to do was they'd have, when you come into a room, they'd have this kind of central like wall that would block you. So when players came in, they could either go left or right, and that would make the space feel bigger than what it was, because you had a choice on that. And then Uncharted, with what Naughty Dog have done, especially in number 4, is they've actually added even bigger loops. So that I'm referring to as a loop. So where you take a path that may actually go up on the higher floor, but then you finish in the same endpoint, and then you choose the opposite path, which is on the lower floor, and again you still come at that same point. So having these loops here can make the space also feel bigger than what it actually is. Another thing that you can do, especially when you're doing and designing interior spaces, is having blocked or locked doors. So if this is on there but players cannot actually get into, having that there is actually something that, for example, gives the illusion of space, because you think there's actually something behind the door, but there's not. So those are a few things to help the world feel less corridory. I think one of the things that I notice... Sorry, I'm a bit ill, so I apologise. One of the things that I find with... one of the things that I find with like Final Fantasy, because they got a lot of stick in 13 for having like corridor levels, is that if you have a mini-map that shows an outline, that can cause the breaking of the immersion. So be careful on highlighting that or how you show it. So those were the first ones from Watermelon. Thank you very much. Okay. Now let's move on to some next questions. I just want to say thank you again for all who are currently joining me. If you do have questions, please write them here. Also, if you are on the Discord, write them on the Discord, because I'll get around to them. So we're going to be going through this as we do. Okay. Okay, the next one is from Snow. He is also on the Discord. Yeah. Sorry guys, it's all new to me. So he asks, what is the cultural differences with, say, something like Sweden or Poland? Because for those of you who do not know, I'm currently living in Poland. I'm originally from the UK. And he asks, what are the differences with the cultures and how does that actually affect the work environment? It's a really interesting question. I think it's one to note as well. So basically, and again I apologise for the sniffles there, basically it's a very interesting one. And I will mean that, I guess it's an interesting one. I guess in terms of like how, like their time structure firstly. So in Sweden, they absolutely love their lunch. And that's, when I say this isn't a dig or anyone or anything like that. What I'm saying is as soon as that clock hit 12, everyone was ready to go for lunch. Like they really respected it was their lunch period. And then they went off and had their lunch for the allotted time period. And they came back. But it was more trying to figure out that balance of when it is your time, it is your time. And that the company should respect that, which is very, very interesting. It was a weird one. Weird's not the right word. It was a different one in terms of like being in the UK, because sometimes you worked into your lunch, because if you had something to do, you just had something to do. I'm not saying they didn't do that, they did. But I guess we don't value our lunch in the UK because our UK meal for lunch is generally just a sandwich. I know that sounds weird, but the point is we look at lunch very differently in the UK because it's just a sandwich, a small meal. In Sweden, it seems to be a bit more of a bigger meal, if you were, and a more respected thing. So say little things like that. I think different. It's not just also the location, but different studios have a different sort of incentive on what's the main focus of a game. Like if you look at DICE, in my opinion, their main focus is the beauty of the game, and they make some of the most beautiful games. Like those Star Wars games are absolutely beautiful, you know, like truly breathtaking. And if you look at something like BioWare, for example, not saying they don't make beautiful games, they do. Yet their focus is more on the narrative branches, and something like that with Telltale games, they are focusing more on the impact of the story on the players. So that's a very interesting one as well. So each studio, and again, is more on focusing on different things about a game. They all focus on the full project, but something like what is the true core of this. So that's always interesting when working at different studios, is figuring that out. So I really like that. Okay, I think we've just got another webinar question in. Okay, we've just got one from Drogmalf. Thank you very much. He is another Patreon supporter on the Discord, so thank you very much for this question, sir, because you are doing it now, and I love that. Okay, he says, hey, here are a few questions. Okay, let's do this. Here are a few questions about level design and horror. What's your take on designing levels for horror games? Do you have any tips/ideas on what could make that more interesting? Do you think in the context of designing horror stuff, it's better for the players to experience being more controlled, or leaving the player more freedom, or risking the player having that feeling of, did I just miss a jump scare? So there's a couple of questions after, but I want to focus because there's already a few there. I have not worked on a horror game, so take what I say with a pinch of salt, because although I'm a level designer, I haven't worked in this topic, so I feel I'm not the best qualified to give the perfect answer for this. However, I'll put my piece in just for what I've seen and played when doing horror games. I think horror games have changed quite a bit, and in a good way. I think there's a lot more interesting ones, because it's no longer just survival horror, there is trying to do other things. One of the biggest detriments to horror games, in my opinion, is the length of a horror game. And it's a really weird one to say, but think about a horror film. Generally, they're one of the shortest genres of films there is. That's because the directors know, and the producers, that you can't keep scaring someone for a 3-hour epic like Lord of the Rings can entertain you for 3 hours. And it's the same with a video game. Like, there's only so many times that you can have a jump scare over and over and over before it gets annoying and tense. If the player is so tense for like 5 hours straight, they're going to put it down. They don't want to feel like that all the time. So I think that's something with designing horror games you have to keep in mind, is like the length and also the pacing. When you do have a big scare, how do you tone it down? Or if you are having continuous scares, how does that play for the next beat when you have a downbeat from there? As for the one about leaving the player a bit more freedom, I'd say leave the player more freedom personally. And I don't mean put an open world. What I mean is, this doesn't have to apply to all horror games. It depends on what you're trying to make, because I think, is it Breaking Dawn? The horror, one of the more recent ones, Until Dawn. They had a great one with, they had a really great one with, it was a lot more linear, and it was really cool because they knew what you're doing. But don't forget, when you think about a horror film, we'll take like Evil Dead, for example, or Cabin in the Woods. I know that was not like a traditional one, but there was a play on it. But those teenagers, or what happens normally is, there's always that point in the film, it's like, we gotta split up, which, as we all know, is the dumbest idea. But that happens. So what I think we can recreate is that feeling of, now I'm alone and I've got to find something. And then what you can have is, again, if you have like a bigger level, you can have, they might miss something, scare one because they've turned right, but that'll lead on to something that is a different result. So that way, there's something that's keeping going with everyone having a different experience. Because horror as well, one thing that scares me might not scare you. So having those different things, I think, could be really interesting. Let's just look at the Twitch stream comments here from Mr. Frostbite395. When it comes to monster movies, there is a well-known effect that a longer a monster movie is on the screen, the less scary it becomes. Yeah, just said that's earlier, so no, I completely agree with you, mate. It's true. So we need to find that balance when it comes to it in games, because if you look at Alien Isolation, an amazing game, but one of the critiques for it was it lasted a while. So you got to think about that with it. I think that's one of the detriments for horror games. It's something we have to consider. But no, like, one of the things that they did, Create Safely did masterfully in that game, was the whole that the alien could pop out at any point, so it changed your experience for the game, which is what I was saying earlier. Was giving the player a chance to do that is something that is really, really cool. Onto the next question from Zinc _. Sorry guys, I'm really not feeling well. I did not sleep well, but we're powering through. Are there any tips you have for a student who'll be looking for a job in a year? I've gotten to the last round interviews for an internship. That is awesome. Congratulations. A company I want to work at, as I've made a few levels for games they've released. Well, that's just really smart. Firstly, I just want to congratulate you, because that's a really smart way, and people can learn from that. You can tailor your portfolio towards a studio that you really want to work for. So having something like that. As for tips on how to get in, if you do check on my podcast, there is episode 5, Breaking into the Industry, where I actually talk about things like that. So do check that out. I'm going to answer your question now, but do check that out to get a more in-depth answer. So tips generally. First one is network. Because the more that you network, the more people that you know, the better chance you have of something happening, because you know someone there. Then when it comes to your portfolio, make sure you don't show all your work. Show your top 3 or your top 5 bits of work, because that there can help you, because then the studio that you're applying to knows that you have sorry, I just seen Rulbamine. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. Well, I'm glad you caught it in time, and thank you, because I'm glad you're enjoying it. But sorry, back to the point at hand. They need to know that you understand, like, the quality that you're delivering. So don't always just have everything on display. Show your top 3 to top 5. Another thing for it, make sure your work's at the front of your portfolio, because the quicker they can get to your work, the better, because they're going to be looking at hundreds to thousands of portfolios, and the one thing they want to get to is your work. So make sure that's the front of the page right away, so they understand that stuff. And then also another thing is show the progress. A lot of people tend to just try to show the final product, and that's what I was doing when I was first starting out. But what you should do instead is actually show, like, the process of going from your paper design to the block out to the finished product. That way they can see how you work. And that's what they're interested in. They want to know, how do you work? How do you get this? How do you think? So I hope that helps, Zinc _official. If you do want more on this stuff, do check out the podcast, which is on YouTube or iTunes, which you just search Level Design Lobby for that. And if you're not already, mate, do sign up to the Patreon, because we have stuff like this on the Discord where we share each other's portfolios and we give each other feedback. So do come on to the Patreon, which again, just search Level Design Lobby and you'll get some amazing stuff on there. And congratulations again on your internship, and I hope that has answered a few things. Okay, Rulium goes, I feel level design is so much harder to show the 3D art, for instance. That's an interesting one. I think it's getting better, and I do think you have a valid point on it. It seems to be it was weird, but I think now, like I've just saying, I don't know why I'm pointing over my shoulder, but in the previous question, that what we found is we shouldn't be afraid to show blockouts. So you just doing your white box, your block mesh, whatever you want to refer to it as, that's cool. We will accept that, and that's exciting for it. If you have art in it, awesome. But don't worry. You just want to show the level, and then you want to do a video walkthrough of your level, if you can, or a documentation showing this is how the player will come in. You know, you'll encounter these enemies, or you'll trigger this puzzle. This is how you solve it. Doing stuff like that will be awesome, and those are some small things, excuse me, you can do to help your work stand out for sure. Is that okay, or do you want me to build up further on that one? Let me know in the chat there, my man, and I can break down a little bit further for you, buddy. Zinc goes, I've watched a few streams from a guy who works there and considering messaging him and asking some questions. I also have documentation for most of my recent work. If you'd like to take a look, but I'll listen to the podcast. Yeah, for sure, man. What you can do is, if you sign up to the Patreon, you'll come onto Discord, mate, even just $1, and then send it over to me there, and I will happily take a look. And do contact him. That would be a smart thing, because you can say how his work's inspired you, and say what you've learned from it. Show him that you've paid attention to it. I think that would be a really, really cool one. Now we're going to head back, because we've kind of done a long circle on here, on Dragmouth's horror question. Okay, so... Oh, you mentioned jump scare in your question as well, mate. I wouldn't just focus on these jump scares. That's not the only way to create horror. Layers of Fear tries different things. If you look at Outlast, they do a lot of crazy things without a jump scare. They do use jump scares, and jump scares are important, but don't just rely on them, because if you keep overusing that, that can cause issues and just just kind of ruin the experience. Hey, Green Watermelon, happy to have you here, mate. So yeah, don't just focus on the jump scares. Do try to think about just audio. Audio design is key also in horror games. Sorry, guys. Oh, I'm really ill, so I apologize, and I feel really rude. And if my dad ever saw this Twitch stream, he would have a go at me for sniffling and for wiping my nose. So I do sincerely apologize. I'm a bit ill from it. Okay, we're going to move on to your next questions. Good sir. What are some horror video games that you found interesting? What's your opinion on the design choices of having the player being defenseless or being able to fight back? So some good ones. Like I said, it's not my main genre that I play. I think horrors, there isn't as many as I'd like to see out there. Some interesting ones is Layer of Fear. That does some really cool stuff, so do check that one out. I think it tries to do things in a different way and not rely on jump scares, as I just previously mentioned. Also look at Amnesia. I like that one. That was obviously a very good one. Until Dawn, I did like that one as well. They're the ones that stick to mind. One that is amazing, and I recommend you all to play. It's free, and that is Doki Doki Literature Club. Just play that, okay? I'm not going to say any more. Probably you've already know about it, but look how that switched things out in a very different way. Moonlight, oh god, Seb, I know you're here, mate. I know you are. Max, why is your channel the only one that keeps buffering like crazy? I don't know. I'm sorry, Seb. I'm new to this one. So, thank you for doing that to me, mate. Nah, Seb's funny. He's a good lad as well. He was, if we don't realise who Moonlight CDPR is, Moonlight joined me on the level design principles on episode 11, so it was the second level design principles. He is a really good dude, so that's a bit of banter, but he likes to keep me on my toes, bless him. Oh, what, Malone, you don't like it? I thought it was interesting because it's subverted, and what it's good at is the subversion of the expectation. Because when I saw it, I didn't know what it was. It was like, oh, it's a dating simulator. Great. You know, but then it becomes something different. And I think that was the horror of it. And because it messed, and it showed some like disturbing stuff as well. Some interesting. I'm not a huge fan of just gore porn. I'm really not interested in that. Like personally, like that stuff's not. It's not for me. Okay. Ooh, Pony Island, is that horror? All right. Is that horror for us? Let me know. Ruben, I'm just starting to leave 2D art to focus on level design. Oh, cool. Awesome. There are a lot of things to learn, and all your tips are really amazing. Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you're finding them interesting, mate. So, I don't know if you're on the Patreon, but come join on to that, because we have stuff every day, and you get early access, and we chat all the time on Discord, so go to that. You know, no, don't backpedal, Seb. I know who you are. I know who you are. All right. How would you go around showcasing players' experiences when showcasing level design? Correlated. In which places of the map the player should feel certain emotions, the overall flow of the level. It's kind of hard to imagine how that would look on paper. That's a really interesting question there on paper, because you're not going to be able to show it on paper. Like, you're just going to have the block out on it. That's all you're going to have. So just focus on that. Like, you can just do a side note, like an arrow coming off it saying, this goes on here. What I will say is the emotion that you're trying to get the player to feel, do that, do research on it. So one of the things that you can do is make the level feel more claustrophobic, going, you know, as you can see the walls closing in, and that makes the players feel tight and also powerless. Oh, and here's one of my favorite and probably the best horror game I ever played, was PT. We'll never see the real Silent Hills, but they just took one space and made that terrifying. It took me 5 attempts to complete that game, me and my friends and my brother, because we were so scared by it. So, yeah. But showing that on paper design, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just make notes on it. Say what you've got here. The best way to show it is to actually get in there and block it out, mate. That's what I'd recommend on that. So, okay, Frostbite, that sounds cool. I really like that. No worries, mate, Ruben. If you can't join, can't join. Just keep following the podcast, mate, because anything like that is cool. As long as that you feel that you are gaining something from this, go for it, mate. That's the most important thing, dude. I want to make sure that everyone is happy. And yes, Frostbite, RIP to one of the greats, PT. When Watermelon, I hope I'm saying that correctly because I really like your name, Watermelon. When you're doing a sketch, do you use Draw.io or or Photoshop or anything like that? It depends. It depends on the time that I have for it, because sometimes you have a time period where you're allowed to, where you actually have to create a design document and present it to other teams. So in that, I will use paper and then something like Photoshop. But most of the time, due to time limit, I just use pen and paper. Just a quick sketch. Also, I want to say, when you are using pen and paper design, don't stick by it, okay? Just because you have it drawn out doesn't mean that it is the final thing that you have to stick by, okay? You'll find that what might work in 2D does not work in 3D, okay? Because your sketch is probably from a bird's eye view. You're probably not going to be able to feel how it's actually going to feel for the player. So don't stick to it as some sort of concrete design. It's a great basis and a great starting point. So that's what we can go from there. Seb, you know, Seb Moonlight, you got anything to add on certain things for when you come to sketching your levels? Seb's a level designer as well, so anything that he says, do pay attention to. What else do we have? Can you re-download it? I did delete it, so I hope, Frostbite, that there is a chance to get it back. So now let's come back for some other questions here. Myself and the associate producer of the show, Alex, did a Q&A, so we will be coming back. So we have answered some questions in the Q&A, but I'm going to answer some on here, and then some in the Q&A as well for those who have missed the Twitch recording. So, Nitess, she is also a member of the Patreon. She asks, the best level design books / resources out there. Okay, that's a very interesting one for me. My favorite, because my favorite one actually isn't a game book. It's actually called 101 Things I Learned at Architecture School. It is a very cheap book, but I keep that on my desk at all times because of how vital that is. Because it teaches you a lot about architecture, so when the spaces that you're creating become extremely believable, there's a lot of knowledge you can take from there and apply to your own levels as well. So that is the first most, not most one. The second one I really like is the psychology of video games. The psychology of video games is just a great podcast because it talks about things that you don't normally think about. And for the horror game, really check it out because there's some stuff you can learn on there about players' expectations. Like for example, most playable characters are about 6 foot. I don't know, it's like 200 centimeters or something. And generally, what you find is when someone's character is like 6 foot plus, the player feels like really strong, really like cocky and everything. But if you make them about 5 foot or smaller in the game, their reaction when playing is very shelled up. They're very nervous. So think about that as well when you're creating a horror game. Excuse me, about having like characters from that there. So now we have our boy Moonlight, who says, "Don't get hung up on the document. It's about convincing the people you work with and owning the idea. As long as your team are clear on what you want, the document has done its job." That's a very valid point, and that's sums it up. So do listen to Moonlight on what he's saying there. What else do we have on this one here? Speaking of bird's eye view, how would you go about sketch when the level is quite vertical? What you can do is you can have different ones where you have like floors. So on Photoshop, I have one where it has ground floor and then first floor, and I just turn on and off the layers. What you can also do is color coding. So you can have just the floor plan, but you have darker gray is the lower level and lighter gray is the higher level, something like that. It doesn't have to be those colors, but just as a reference, you can use that for it there. Oh, Konami pulled the data. God damn it. So Ruben asked, what games do you recommend for their level design? A lot of people always mention Dishonored. I'm really in love with the first Dark Souls. I didn't play Dark Souls, but I did play Bloodborne. Bloodborne does have some great level design. I like how their shortcuts work and really make you explore because of that. I think that's great. Naughty Dogs, in my opinion, do some of the best level design. Now that's a bit more linear, but they are masters of what they do. I am an absolute huge fan of what Naughty Dog does in terms of level design, how they use their levels to actually portray our emotion. My favorite level that I have mentioned on the Discord is that actually it's in the Last of Us Left Behind DLC. Sorry guys. So what it is there's a bit where Ellie heads down to the basement of this mall, and I'm not going to spoil it because it's better that you watch it. But what you do is it's just the same space, but the player has to interact it 3 times. One for a puzzle, one for a traversal challenge, and one for combat. And how you use the same space over is amazing. Like, that was my favorite thing ever, because they know how to guide the player using light and other things, and like birds and stuff. There's amazing things. I think Naughty Dog is some of the best at linear level design without a shadow of a doubt. For open world, it has to be Legend of Zelda right now. How they encourage players to explore with just level design. It's some of the best without a doubt. God of War currently has some really great level design. I'm really enjoying that so far. So some really cool stuff. Deus Ex to me, in terms of the amount of options. I've only played Dishonored 1. I do really like that. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Titanfall, the series. Because if you think about their multiplayer maps, they have some great single player ones, but think about their multiplayer maps. That has to work on 2 different ways. Heck, 3. So you've got the first one, which is just as a soldier. Think about the scale of the building. So now you have to be able to move through, create different running opportunities across different jumps, slides, and all that thing. And then you put the Titan in it. Well, how does the Titan move around that space? You've got to make it so the Titan moves around that space, but still has an advantage, but not a strong one, to take out the pilots inside that building. But you've also got to create a space for when the pilots can flank and get the advantage on the Titans as well. So I think they have some of the best stuff out there. Maria asks, do I have any pets? I do. I've grown up with pets. I first had a dog till I was about 6 when the dog sadly passed away. She didn't die at 6. She was with the entire family for a very long time. Like, my mum had her before I was born. Her name was Bess. And then had a cat called Cleo. She was amazing. She lived for 10 years. Beautiful cat. And then I've currently, at my parents' house, got 2 dogs. One's a Westie Terrier, and the other one is a Chocolate Lab. The Westie is called Binks, and the Labrador is called Henry. I love them to pieces. Obviously don't see them as much as I would like. But yes, I have pets, and I absolutely adore them. I'm not like a dog or a cat person. I love them both. So, go with that there. Oh, really? You think that that's a really interesting point. If they were in Amnesia, that's a really smart one. So yeah, think about that as well. Psychonauts has some amazing level design, both aesthetic. Yeah, Psychonauts, I haven't had a chance to play. I tried to play it, but like it was really janky when I tried to play, and I was just like, So I think you're right. I think the Milkman's Mind is like regarded as one of the best levels or something in many people's minds. So that's a very interesting one. I think from a aesthetic level, yeah, it definitely has some crazy cool stuff there. Yeah, I'd love to check that out. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges for someone starting out as a professional level designer? When you ask that, Chrome Soul, do you mean that you're hired or trying to get hired? Please just clarify on that, mate, and I'll come back to that question. What would you do if during development you had a really big hub level that looks nice, but there's not much gameplay in it, and there's not much gameplay mechanics that would fit in it? Well, it depends what's the purpose of the hub level there, mate. Because sometimes the hub level is just a spot for you to chill out and just not do much. Like if you think about the what is it? If you think of the spaces in Destiny and Division, the hub spaces there, like there's not much gameplay. It's more talking and socializing. That's fine because that's what hubs are meant for. Like you have to make sure that the hub is meeting the expectation for the player. It doesn't have to be crammed with gameplay. Sometimes the hub just needs to be a down moment where you sit, socialize, and buy and upgrade gear. So I wouldn't worry too much about that in a hub level, but it depends on the game and the vision for your game as well. Because what the Division and Destiny do may not work for every game, but it depends. Like generally hubs are just quiet spaces where a player kind of gets their bearing and stuff. So yeah, I'd think on that one. How's the move over to Poland been? How's your Polish skill speaking? I know Seb is going to see this and call me out on it. So mi Polska nie dobrze I fatalnie. Nie, which is basically me just saying no, it's really bad and it sucks. A rough translation. It is one of the hardest languages. I am not very good at it. There's a lot of like sounds that I don't hear. Like, for example, the word for what is so, and when someone first said that, it sounded like so to me, and I couldn't hear the difference until the person said to me, no, it's more like a tss instead of s. There's things like that, these sounds that they're used to saying and hearing, like sh, zh, and there's another one that I don't know, and like my mouth is not used to forming because I'm English, so it's not good. Like my Polish is not good. I can have a very, very small conversation. So dzień dobry, ja się masz. Dobrze. I bardzo dobrze. Which is just hello, how are you? I'm fine. Small things like that. Z angielsku, which is I'm English. So butchered. That's all butchered. That's not really good Polish, as anyone who's Polish would tell you. It's not very good. Okay, next one's someone who's just been hired. Thank you very much for elaborating on that, Chrome. So I think the biggest one is being nervous about sharing your work. Find that. So don't be, right? Your entire team wants you to succeed. You are hired because they want you to be the best. They want to get the best out of you. So don't be afraid. Also pay attention, because a lot of things, because if you come through the university route, there's some things and a lot of things that you don't learn through university. So just sit there and learn as much as possible. Also, fail. Like just straight up fail as many times as you can. the first thing I like showed to my leader was rubbish, absolutely rubbish, and that's fine because he knew that was okay because he said, right, we're taking you and we're trying to push you further. So don't worry about that. Let's just keep going, keep pushing. And that's what I recommend for that there. Sorry guys, what else have we got? Also communication, because like it depends the size of your studio, but like I went to a really big one. Excuse me. And like it was a crazy how many people there was. So communication is not going to work well all the time. It's the first thing that breaks. So just get used to that and keep pushing. You know, if you think something can be improved, show it, okay? Another thing, don't complain. What I mean by don't complain is don't just show up with the problem. Come up with, if there is a problem, state it and think of a solution, because that's a really good one. Andros Game Dev, greetings, good sir. I am okay. I'm a little bit ill, so you're going to hear me sniff a bit. I apologise. Last night I had a really bad night's sleep. I was breaking into shivers where my teeth were even chattering, all the way to sweats. So it's amazing what good lighting can do to make you look healthier. So yeah, I'm alright, mate. Okay, back to it. It's kind of a big underwater area. Buildings it, you have to go through the area. Yeah, so if your hub is a safe space, don't try and have different sort of gameplay, like stuff that's a bit more exotic, you know, like stuff there where players can play mini games or something, for example. It's those sort of things. Frostbite says a lot can be learned from terrible games. What is the worst game you've ever played, and what did you take away from it? Oh man. What was it? I can't remember the name of it, but I do remember taking away, because it was a mobile game. Taking away some sort of it was a lesson in UI, just how there's so much wrong with the user experience that it just made me learn like how important that is. Like, because I don't work much with that, but I know a lot of people who do, and I understand how important their role is. But that just like clarified really how important their role is to me. I'm sorry I can't remember the name of the game, but just that was one of the big takeaways I had. Yeah, you're right with the grammatical things. Like gender rules is crazy. It's really crazy, some of that stuff there. Yeah, so we're going much longer than I thought this was going to go, so I'm probably actually going to end it here. So before we actually go anywhere, I'm going to answer 3 more questions and we'll call it quits there, okay? So if you have a question, please put it in to the comments now, and then I'll answer it before I head off, because I'm getting a bit sniffly and I need to blow my nose and get better, to be honest with you. So let's have 3 more questions, guys and girls. And we can go from here. Okay. Alright, Morel, you want to know more about the level design weekend? This is really cool. So the level design weekend is a really cool thing that I came up with and I'm really excited for. So I'm imagining most of you know about game jams, where you have an allotted time where you and a small team make a game. So imagine that, but just for level design. We just have 1 weekend to make a game. I'm going to set it up as if it is a test for a studio. So that way it's a practice zone for you for when you have to do a level design test. So you know what it's used to. What's going to happen is I'm going to set a description and a bunch of rules. Some of you who have voted on the Patreon have voted. The votes are kind of in. There's still time. But the vote so far is leaning towards first person map. Basically, you're going to have to create a, say for example, I might say something like a warehouse. And there's going to be 2 to 3 beats, so objectives. One will be you have to rescue someone, combat encounter, and escape. And then you're going to have to make a level that encompasses this. So you're going to create just the block out. If you want to add art, go for it. But you do not have to. I just want to see minimum a white box of that level. And then in that, we don't need any AI. If you want to put AI in because you think you can do it in the time, go for it. But again, just even like red people or red cubes would be fine, just so we can see where everything is going. So that's what the level design weekend is, like a game jam, but just for level design. And then after all of that is done, myself and Alex will go through all those levels and give you feedback on this as well. Because you'll have to do the block out, but you will also have to provide documentation, just 2 pages or something, or if you want to do it in a different way. And you're gonna have to, give some documentation on what's happening in it, how it works, how you intended it to work, so that I understand it as well. So that's the plan of level design weekend. I'm super duper excited for it because I think it's really cool. First one is in July, and for those who Ruben, it is cool. Thank you very much. It is a Patreon exclusive right now, mate. So I'll speak to others if we can do something about following it. But so far is a Patreon exclusive. I am thinking of opening it up to the public later, but because it's come to the patrons, like they only pay $5 currently. If you want to come in and you're not a patron, it'll probably cost more. So do keep that in mind. But this is generally for patrons right now. But it's a really, really cool thing. Man, why am I struggling with names? It's my biggest weakness, other than bullets, and that is Muriel. Does that answer your question on level design weekend, or do you want me to expand on anything? I said 2 more questions, guys, before I call this off, before I end the first ever webinar, which is super, super duper cool. This has been really, really nice and a great experience. We're going to work on this graphical layout. I hope you do like it. And yeah, we'll get something there. Really, don't worry about the skills, mate. Like, this is why we're doing this, so everyone can improve on the skills, my friend. Don't worry. Like, I'm not sure if I want to share everyone. If I want to, I don't know if people. I'm not sure I want to share everyone's feedback with everyone. Just do it, man. Like, it doesn't matter about the skills, because you've got to start somewhere, buddy. And the sooner that you start, the sooner that your stuff's going to get even better. So please, like I said, we're not asking for big art. I'm just asking for you to take like white cubes or grey cubes, whatever color cubes you like, and just make something there, mate. Feel free, man. Like, come on in. We'll see what we can do with sharing it to people. So yeah, I wish it was sooner as well, my friend, but I'm busy till July, so sadly not. I mean, yeah, like I want it to be sooner, but we're going to be doing 4 a year, and we might try to do more, but it depends, because trying to do the webinar, like we got 3 episodes of the podcast. I'm doing a personal project and work. It's kind of hard to fit it all in, but I promise you, every time we do it, it's going to be amazing. And as long as you are learning and you feel you're getting better, that is the most important thing from here at the Level Design Lobby, is that you feel that you're getting better from it. Okay, what else we have? Cheers, Proposal. Yeah, maybe I'll try. Hopefully I'll have that smooth jazz voice when I'm feeling better again. So thank you very much. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Last question. Sorry, it seems. Well, 2 last questions. Zinc Official asks. Now I feel like a douche when I do that with the arms up. I'm messing. Okay. How do you deal with loss of motivation or losing interest on a project? I have to start sometimes but don't finish. What would like to fix that? Motivation comes in waves. Peaks and troughs. I think it's a very tough one. I think, especially when it's a personal project, it's easier to give up on, because when it's like for your day job, I need to do it. Like, I don't have a choice if I'm motivated or unmotivated, because if I don't do it, I'm getting fired. I'm not to say that's the reason I'm doing it. I'm just saying you can see why it's easier to finish a product when it's your job compared to a personal product. Sometimes I take a break, because if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And then sometimes I just re-look at everything. I just go back to a spider diagram and go, right, well, okay, what is the game? Do it, and then just draw the points off from it and try to do something different with that. That's one of the most important things that I like to try to do. So yeah, that's how I try to stay motivated. And also, like, I meditate as well, and I'm not going to tell you all to meditate, because you do what you guys want to do. But I meditate, and that helps me, because I keep thinking in my head, why is this project important? And I don't mean just to me, and I don't mean this in the egomaniac kind of way, but why is it important that this game is made for the entire industry? What am I doing with this game that's going to change and improve this industry? And you won't do it for every game, and that's fine, but maybe those are the games you give up on because it's not going to make that big enough change that you want to make. So that's what I try to do to stay motivated. I hope that answers your question there, good sir. Dragonmouth, I think you're on about level design weekend. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Could you talk a little? Sorry, can the level be done in any engine? It's going to be any engine, Unity or Unreal. I don't want to limit you, because I think it's important, because you don't need to master every engine. The one that you're most comfortable with is the most important. It's the level itself. One of the things that I kind of get a bit like, one of the questions that I see, sorry guys, head's not there. One of the questions I often see on like game dev chats is, what engine should I use? It's not about the engine, guys. It's about what you do with that engine. So as long as you can make a first-person map, because currently the vote's in first person, then we're fine, as long as it can do that. So you probably can't use like Construct 2 or Game Maker, because they're 2D games. But any of the ones, even if you want to use Hammer, as long as you can create an executable for me to play, it's all good. So yeah, hope that answers the question, my good sir. And then the last question, Chrome Soul, can you talk a little bit about a day in the life of a professional level designer? Yeah, it's a weird one to say. So generally, a day in the life for me is a lot of communications, because there's lots of people that help make these levels. So I will talk to a lot of people to try and get a lowdown on what is it they're looking for in the level, what is the shared and united vision for this level. I tend to grab research on level when I'm starting something out, so I can actually make sure that everything I'm building is going to work correctly. And then it's more about blocking out. So there's a lot of stuff with me working at different stages of the levels, and a lot of meetings to go involved with that. Now that's generally in the production phase. Different phases cause different kind of average days with it, but they're some of the normal ones. Sorry I can't answer that question any sooner. In more detail. I'm going to head off because I'm really not feeling great. I think I'm probably just going to go to bed. But to be honest, I might just grab some ice cream and do my Bridget Jones, where I'm just going to sit and might play some God of War. But I'm probably just going to go straight to bed. So sorry, Chrome Soul, that I couldn't answer that one in more detail. But generally, it's a lot of communication and working on levels then. So no worries, Frostbite. I'm glad that you enjoyed this as well. No, like, this is my pleasure as anyone else. I'm happy that I can do this, because this was maybe I couldn't find it, but there wasn't as much resources on level design as there currently is now. I'm not the only resource, but I want to help everyone. So everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. If there are people who are asking about this, the video will stay there, so come check it out. Again, it's been absolutely amazing. We're going to do this like once every 2 months, so we're going to also try to get better. Me and Alex are already looking into how to get things more interesting. Maybe we play a game one day where I just go through and talk about this game, and we just do the question ones as well. So again, thank you all very, very much for everything. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. It's been an absolute blast. All right, everyone, take care. As always, lots of love from me to you. And yeah, all the best, everyone. Bye.